Hello and welcome to this special edition of Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick, on the road in Northwest Indiana, coming to you from the Mascot Hall of Fame in Whiting. We'll tell you more about this very unique addition to Northwest Indiana a little bit later in this broadcast. But this museum is reflective, I think, of a changing region. The state's second largest regional economy, the industrial heart of Indiana, now taking on a new direction.
Grit, hard work, and heavy industry have been the region's calling cards for well over 100 years, since the arrival of industrial giants like U.S. Steel and Standard Oil. Industrial might that helped build America, attracting workers from around the world, forming a melting pot of ethnicities that remains an important part of the fabric of the region today. Northwest Indiana was hit hard by the nation's manufacturing transition, its perception long framed as a Rust Belt region losing jobs and population. But for the first time in nearly a decade, there are signs of significant economic improvement and growth here, and an economy in transition. While manufacturing still drives the economy, the region's tourism industry is growing, fueled by the Indiana Dunes designation as a national park, a first for Indiana. The $300 million Hard Rock Casino in Gary is part of a gaming industry that generates hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact. And people are moving into the region as communities like Whiting, Valparaiso, Hammond, and Michigan City are making major investments in downtown redevelopment and quality of place, attracting new residents from the Chicago suburbs. A region with a proud past is embracing change in hopes of a promising future.
Well, a long talked about project that some say could transform the region is the southward expansion of the South Shore Line Westlake Corridor project, and it's now one step closer to becoming a reality. Now, the project would include 4 new stations along an 8-mile extension between Hammond and Dyer, and importantly, it would mean better connectivity, access to Chicago. I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority President and CEO Bill Hanna to explain what's next for this generational project, as well as some other developments in the region. And Bill, as always, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I want to talk about the South Shore Line because that is such an important project here, been talked about for many, many years. But as you look at the overall health of the region, the regional economy, how would you assess the state of Northwest Indiana?
Yeah, you know, really it's never been better. We went through a period of struggle there, of course, with industrial decline, and a lot of it had to do with productivity too. So I feel like the steel industry and BP are more competitive than they've ever been. But we're learning also to adjust to some of the changes there in terms of employment. And so I think we've postured ourselves as the new suburban opportunity around Chicago, and that's a game changer for us.
Yeah, and you talk about that changing workforce. You talk about the steel industry, tens of thousands of jobs, high-paying jobs over the year. A lot of those have gone away, still very important here, but it's a different mix, service industry jobs and some others as well.
Yeah, it really is. You know, when I was a kid, my dad, being a 35-year steel worker, used to be proud about the fact that it was between 7 and 10 jobs supported by the steel industry. And that's changed somewhat. As you said, it's still a powerhouse. It's a global connection. But I think, you know, looking at diversity in professional jobs, that's changed a lot, and it's been on the rise. Tapping into our educational institutions like IU and Purdue that are up here, and some of the benefits that come from that has become bigger and stronger. And of course, you know, tapping into the 3rd largest economy in the country in a place that has as many jobs as the state of Indiana, Chicago, Illinois, is going to be huge for us.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because a project that can do that is the South Shore extension, that 8-mile extension between Dyer and Hammond, been talked about for more than 3 decades. For those outside of the region, talk about what this extension means. There's also a double tracking of the South Shore that could have impact all the way to South Bend.
You know, you think about public transit, and it's really not primarily focused on that. This is about economic development and reducing time to market. So the impact really is about 2 things: taking people to work and then bringing people here to increase our population. We've had areas that have had decline in population in the north since the 70s, and some growth in the south, but this is going to help change the direction of what people are thinking about in terms of living opportunities within Northwest Indiana.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think that's part of the changing of Northwest Indiana and what communities are doing here. We're here in Whiting is an example, East Chicago, Valparaiso, a number of these communities making quality of life improvements, housing improvements that can attract people from Chicago.
Yeah, that's really it. So So we had an economic development model for a long time, which we still do in support of industry, which was really about attracting industry from Illinois and other places and incenting them to come across the border. And the realization came in just looking at other areas where real estate values and attractiveness to people really has to be a part of what we're doing here. You can't really run the business of government without showing positive increase of population. That's ultimately our goal. And so we've changed our approach, and you see these communities as partners here in Whiting, as you said, Valparaiso, Hammond, other places, where the mayors and community leaders are partnering with the RDA to improve the quality of life and make some very attractive features, whether it's on the lake shore or downtowns, that kind of thing.
Bill Hanna is the CEO of the Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority. Bill, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting us here this week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.